Okay, and we're going live. Let me just refresh the page. Add the link. Dun, 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 dun. Where the heck is it? Why it is not up yet? Where are you? Hi, Justin.
Hi, Justin.
Hey, hi. 1 second. We're just trying to get our links together so we can make sure the links are. If we do not have the links, we cannot beat the communists and the Russians and the Soviets and these things of this nature. Where is okay? What? Is this not a live broadcast? What's the deal here? Why is it not popping up?
Says it's live.
Where is? I see non-qualifying offer. What in the? And he's able to get into it.
Yeah, it's live.
Why is my YouTube not? Are you seeing it on YouTube right now? Like the?
I looked at it a minute ago.
I see collector's review from what the living shit. I've got all like your collector's thing and all that. I just don't have, for some reason, I'm not seeing our live link. Are you? Do you have it? Do you see it?
I do. And wait,
is there a link? Hey, can you guys link me in that chat? For some reason, my browser's not.
I got it. Go look at my. I just tweeted it. I'm looking at it.
Oh, okay. Let me get to the other one. I don't know what the heck the deal is. What in the hee haw?
Did you hear it? I just played a couple seconds for you. I tweeted out the link.
There it is. Conforto debate. I don't know why it's not showing up, but now I got it. Yeah. Give me 1 second.
What up, Yumper? What up, Jumper? What up, Justin? I was going to say Jumper. What up, Justin? What up, Yumper?
Wait, oh, okay, that'll do it. And that's tweeted, so now just the share.
Hey, Yumper, I think K-Fids was having a pepcac.
I was having a what?
A pepcac.
A what?
It's either problem exists between keyboard and chair or problem exists between computer and chair.
Like with the computer in general. Like the tweet didn't even show up. Like I'm trying to share the tweet and it won't show up. I got to go to the page. What?
I tweeted it. You can just re-forward mine.
Nah, I got you. There we go.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure it's that one. Because last time Pete invited everybody in the world. No, just kidding.
I did. I am totally guilty. I was the pepcac last week, right here. Yumper got it. The fun of actually doing podcasts, waiting for everything to get set up.
Yep. There we go. Cubs, hashtag White Sox, hashtag B. Arthur, hashtag nude Betty White, hashtag. All right, we got it. All right, so sweet. All right, ready to rock now. Okay.
Let's do it.
And I got to close that window. Hold on. Let me just close this. These inappropriate pictures of Betty White from yesterday. Okay. Now those are gone too. Okay. I'll give us a start here in a second, and then we will get going.
4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
It's time for The Tainted Glove, starring your favorite man of questionable character, Aloha Mr. Hand.
Hey, bud, let's party.
And the Holy Reverend K-Fids himself. It's go time, so grab a beer, grab a bite, and settle in. It's time for The Tainted Glove.
Aloha, and welcome to the Tainted Glove. Today is Tuesday, November 16th, I am one of your co-hosts, Aloha, Mr. Hand. And with me, as always, is the other half of the most legendary meathead duo of all time, K-Fids. K-Fids, take it away.
Derp, 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 derp. Durka, durka, derp, derp. Durka, durka. Sorry, one of my favorite movies. How you guys doing? Welcome. Thanks for tuning in. It is November, mid-November. The temperatures are changing, and the hot stove is starting to heat up as we get cold, and the GM meetings are over, and the Mets sent somebody that wasn't the GM, but then hired a GM after it was over. So it's been a really eventful couple days. But we're welcome. Glad you guys can tune in. It's been last time was the Sunday night before the Bears game, so we got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk Michael Conforto. We're going to talk some analytics versus balance when it comes to front office decisions and how you really can judge a quality ball player, and our opinions on how the league itself and the game itself does judge. We'll talk about that for a little bit. We're going to talk about the CBA moves, the pre-CBA moves, I guess we'll call it that. A couple of them going on this week that were pretty big money moves, and talk a little bit about why so early. And then we'll talk a little bit about the Cubs and the recent, at least, insinuation that they might be taking a look at the Seager brothers. Then we'll jump into the Bear stuff. We'll talk about the officiating debacle that was Pittsburgh. Embarrassing, really. And we'll talk about Justin Fields' giant jump as a marquee franchise quarterback. And then we'll jump into a little bit of film stuff with Rocky versus Drago. Me and Pete both got this separately, but together. We didn't get to hold hands. Let's hear the pop.
Hubba.
I did have it cut the hole in the. Never mind. What? No, not that. No, I didn't use that trick as I was sitting by myself, which made it weirder. Anyway, so we'll talk about Rocky versus Drago, which was the Sly Stallone cut of Rocky 4. But before we do any of that, I've been waiting for this all day. Been refreshing my browser for links or for leaks and early releases, but alas, it didn't happen until we were getting ready to go on. So about 20 minutes ago, they did release the new Spiderman, or the final Spiderman No Way Home trailer. Pete and I, full disclosure, have not watched it yet.
Correct.
So this is going to be a pure reaction. I don't know what the reaction is going to be. All I know is I've gotten a few texts with eggplants. It's always a good sign when it comes to response. But we're going to go ahead and start that here right now. And then after that, we'll jump right into White Sox stuff. But this is a pure cherry popping moment right here for both of us to give a look-see to the new final trailer as we head into the multiverse, the new Spider-Man No Way Home trailer. So again, here we go. Me and Pete have not seen this, so this is fresh live. So here we go.
Ever since I got bit by that spider, I've only had 1 week where my life has felt normal. That was when you found out.
When you botched that spell where you wanted everyone to forget the Peter Parker Spider-Man, we started getting some visitors. From every universe.
Hello, Peter.
You need some help.
You're not Peter Parker.
I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Dr. Otto Octavius.
Wait, no, seriously, what's your actual name?
There are others out there.
They need to be
Send them
bitched back.
So, Scooby-Doo this crap.
Oh, this is kind of your mess. I know a couple of magic words myself, starting with the word please.
Oh, please, Scooby-Doo this crap.
You're flying out into the darkness to fight ghosts.
What do you mean?
They all die fighting Spider-Man. It's their fate. I'm sorry, kid.
Yeah, me too.
Don't.
Look, there has to be another way!
There isn't. They're a danger to our universe.
You're not gonna take this away from me.
Oh!
Peter, you're struggling to have everything You watch while the world tries to make you choose.
This is all my fault. I can't save everyone.
What's happening?
They're starting to come through, and I can't stop them. December 17th,
Oh, man up,
exclusively
Doc.
in movie theaters. Tickets on sale November 29th. Spider Monday.
Oh my
Oh,
god. Okay.
Spider Monday.
Ooh.
Does that mean they're going to be showing other movies, sort of like the Disney Surprise Weekend?
Right, like which we'll talk about here at the end of the podcast.
Yes.
But okay, so we know now we got some villains, and we look like we got Doc Octopus, who's always been that Doc Ock was always like kind of a sympathetic because he was a good man and a mentor for Peter. So that was kind of interesting to see him kind of go, wait, what? Like and realizing as a scientist probably, ooh, what's going on? Same with Lizard Doctor. What's his name?
Oh yeah, Kurt Connors or
Yeah, he was there. You saw him. Obviously, we saw Sandman.
Saw Electro.
We obviously saw Green Goblin. And then we saw, it looked like, there was a little clip that kind of looked like James Franco's. Let me pull this back again.
Right. It's there.
I'll mute it. But like, right when they show Goblin, they show a second somebody flying towards the camera. And let's see. Here it comes, I think. I feel like somebody was flying towards the camera, but not in the Green Goblin outfit, but in the one that, watch. That. Who's that?
Ooh.
Who's that?
Back and to the left.
Right.
Back and to the left.
Who's this? Coming through. Oh, God, I missed it again. But that's not Willem Dafoe.
No.
That looks like.
The first one would probably be Willem Dafoe. That would probably be Willem Dafoe.
That right there is.
It looks like Bucky Barnes or the Winter Soldier.
Right. Whoever that is, it looks like the James Franco in Spider-Man 3 when he embraced being his dad to go after Spider-Man. So I don't think it would be a big turn of events if James Franco was included in the movie. Like Yupper said, he's got a little bit of some baggage right now, but
yeah,
that was awesome. I obviously it's just the villain, so still no confirmation that everybody knows is coming that there will be two other Spider-Man in multiverse Spider-Man showing up, but we'll see. Who knows? But that was fun. That's fun.
Oh yeah.
So speaking of,
and a great point by Justin. Looks like one of the boss levels of the PS4 game, shot for shot.
could be a shout out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hey, we regurgitate some stuff. It's called fan service. I don't hate fan service. I don't care what anybody says. I love fan service.
Right.
Service me, please. Wait. Whoa, never mind. What? Is it Spider-Men or Spider-Mans? Because he's Spider-Man. So it'd be Spider-Mans, not Spider-Men. They're not spiders that are men. They're Spider-Man.
Well, that brings up the age-old question I have. What are multiple, like the Flying Elvises? Is it really the Flying Elvises? Shouldn't it be the Flying Elvi?
It's the Flying Elvi, I thought.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought that's what it should be.
They get their own. Elvis gets his own species, really.
Yes.
But yes, Spider-Man 2, I agree with Justin. Spider-Man 2 is my favorite of those three films. It was the darkest.
Yes.
And I really enjoyed it. I thought the third one was ugh. And of course the first one was great. It's again Sam Raimi. God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, awesome.
No, okay, quick question.
Hmm?
Justin says it's the second best comic movie ever. I'm guessing, Justin, that Dark Knight would be your number one.
My guess.
Mine personally is Dark Knight is number one.
Don't
And then
spoil it.
number two's a bit of ways.
My guess is that his favorite one is the Dolph Lundgren Punisher film. Sorry, I had to cover the chat just in case you ruined it. But no,
I thought you were going to say Tank Girl.
Hey, that was actually pretty bad. A little Lori Petty action, yes. So, speaking of No Way Home, some baseball players need to find their way home. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And this week, White Sox, Cubs, hot stove with Major League Baseball. We're pre-collective bargaining agreement still. Negotiations are starting in the press, which means they've begun in earnest behind closed doors in some capacity. But the big thing this week, obviously, the first thing that really comes to mind during all this, not to mention the fact that there's been some contracts that have been signed or whatever, and larger than expected. I think we could say overpay even in some cases.
There's one giant overpay on the West Coast.
Absolutely, and we'll get to that here.
Yeah.
But what we have is the name that keeps popping up. That popped up is Michael Conforto. So Pete, and obviously you have your thumb on the pulse of White Sox Twitter and your finger in its nose. So for you, tell us about what happened with what is a Michael Conforto? Who is Michael Conforto? Where is Michael Conforto? Sorry.
Yeah. First, I'll say this, that if I had my finger in the nose of White Sox Twitter, it would depend on whose nose it is, whether or not I had blood on it. Because it's been getting interesting out on the mean streets of Twitter, on White Sox Twitter, the last few days.
Look, you can pick your friends, you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your friend's nose.
Well, you have the Michael Conforto stands, and then you have the Michael Conforto haters. I will say this, I am in neither camp. I look at Michael Conforto, and I know people will say that his numbers are similar to Castellanos and everything else, I look at it this way. Take Michael Conforto, take Nick Castellanos. You know that you have to give them either a 1-year deal worth more than 6 million for the qualifying offer? Like, isn't the qualifying offer like 18.6 or something?
Yeah, 18, yeah, like 18.6.
Yeah. So you know that you would need to pay them, especially today, with the window, with them needing to decide one way or the other by tomorrow and accepting or rejecting the qualifying offer. So right now you would need to pay more than that 18.6. And there was a great case of it today. And I got to give the guy, and we'll get to who it is. I got to give him credit, though. He played it brilliantly. But it's not only the fact that you have to pay them, you have to overpay Michael Conforto, because I personally don't think he's an $18.6 million player. My personal opinion. You also have to take into account the cost of a second-round draft pick with it. Because remember, if you sign Conforto and if he accepts the qualifying, or if he rejects the qualifying offer, and you sign him before the draft next year, which by the way was pushed back, if memory serves, it's not in June anymore, it's in July. So, and that's even if there is a season, but we're going to try and be positive here. So you would have to give up a second-round draft pick as well as pay the money. My personal feeling is that Michael Conforto would not be worth that much cost. And I say that because, yes, you could say, oh, this year was an off year, but he had great years, and he's this WAR and this and that and everything else. He's only played in the National League. If you're going to take those costs and factor them in, I would absolutely go after Nick Castellanos. You know why? Because I know he's played in the American League in the Central. I know he's familiar with the ballparks in the American League Central. He hits quite well in guaranteed rate field. I almost said U.S. Cellular, but in guaranteed rate field. He hits well there. He's familiar with the American League. I take that as a big advantage, and that is something I know everyone will argue it shouldn't matter. It does matter. How many times have we seen the White Sox go after these National League only guys only to see them fall flat on their face? And Adam Dunn is one. Remember, Adam Dunn didn't want to DH, but when he saw the money, he said, I'll DH. Yeah, how'd that work out? And again, you could say all you want about the stats. Tell me one thing. What's his strikeout percentage? I know the stat heads think strikeouts don't matter and anything else. Bullshit. Strikeouts matter a fucking lot. Accept it. And that's why I would also, depending on how they approach Chris Taylor, I would stay away from him too. I see Chris Taylor as the next Jeff Keppinger.
Oof.
because that Keppinger was a utility guy who played multiple positions. They brought him in to try and have him play third base as a regular, and it did not work out. And it's exactly what I see them happening with Chris Taylor if they try to go down that path, because you're not going to be able to sign Chris Taylor as a utility player. He wants starter money, and his strikeout rate's at like 28%. Roughly, if you look at his numbers, he's got like a 28. That means 1 out of every 4 at bats, he strikes out. Strikes out. Sorry, you guys can argue war and everything else. Strikeouts is the thing I look at. This team has so many strikeouts on it already. They don't need more.
It's you make a really good point there too, because again, strikeouts are still a part of it.
Yes.
And an acceptable part of the game in certain spots in the order. Meaning, if you're a leadoff guy, strikeouts are dog shit.
Yes.
If you're a 9-hole guy, strikeouts are dog shit. If you're an 8-hole guy, strikeouts are dog shit. If you're a 3, 4, 5, strikeouts
comes with the territory.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't even mind a 2-hole guy striking out a bit, just because again, it keeps you from rolling into double plays. But when you get past that meat chunk of your lineup, that's where the balance of a lineup comes in. You need contact guys that are going to put balls in play, that are going to find ways to get on, and then scratch a couple across without having to use them. Now, the long ball obviously wins baseball games. Obviously, we know this. We've seen it with the statistics. I think Aldo on our other podcast, the Navy Pod, have showed the stats all the time that if you hit homers in the postseason, you're going to win. I mean, that's a done.
Ball goes far, team goes far.
Yeah, absolutely. And that said, over the course of 162 games, and when you get into a tighter series, when maybe the long ball isn't happening, you still need guys that are going to get it done when that's not going, when it's not hitting. Because right now, it looked like the White Sox in this postseason, for example, other than the big breakout game, it felt like the whole lineup as a whole caught the cold bug. And when you have a diverse lineup, when the big boppers aren't bopping, you have the little boppers to go out there and scratch a few across to keep your head afloat long enough for the big boppers to figure it out. It didn't work that way for the White Sox because everybody really similar up and down to that lineup is a 3 outcome. You have a lot of 3 outcomes. And if your lineup is more than, to me, I would say more than 66% 3 outcome, you have major problems.
Yes.
I'd say 66%, 2/3 of the lineup being 3 outcome is max. And that is still questionable to me as far as success rate when you're facing better competition. And that's what you see in the postseason. You can beat the shit out of the Royals all day long. You could boat race the Tigers every week. It doesn't matter when you're facing the cream of the crop. And that's the part about that lineup that needs the balance. It's what to do when bats are not working, when the power's gone for a second.
And look at the Astros lineup. The Astros lineup is a blueprint of where you should try and be because it was relentless. It was relentless and
stressful even to the pitchers.
Yes,
which is exhausting.
Look at how many pitches, even in the game they won with Cease. What was he out in the 3rd inning? Because he was at what, like 70, 80 pitches already? And and it's funny because people preach about they want a pitcher who throws strikeouts. And I totally get it. But why do you want a pitcher who throws strikeouts? So take that rationale and apply it to your batting order. So do you want a team that strikes out a lot? I would say no, based on the fact that you want a pitcher against the opponent throwing strikeouts. And that's why I don't understand why people don't get this. That's what made, I know you're going to hate this, but look at the Cardinals of the 80s. All they had were a bunch of fleas who slapped the ball on the AstroTurf and ran around for a while. Look at their strikeout numbers. Very, very low. And I'll give you another example. Joe DiMaggio had roughly 350 homers in his career, had about 360 strikeouts in his career. There are guys who go 2 seasons and have that many strikeouts. It's just, I want contact.
League leader. We know who that is.
Yeah. I want contact. I want contact because if you put the ball in play, the chances are exponentially better that something may happen than if you go walking back to the dugout with your head held down because you struck out. The Astros proved that. They kept putting the ball in play. The Sox weren't shifted right. The Sox weren't getting the cutoff man.
Mm-hmm.
The Sox were kicking the ball around. You create more opportunity putting the ball in play than striking out.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I absolutely agree with you, Yumper. And I would argue that I'll put it this way. I think the Sox should be looking at Chris Bryant, Starling Marte, and Jorge Soler. And I say the last two names because that's more their price range, to be honest. But all three of them do not have a qualifying offer attached to them. And one of the comments I got about the whole thing I was saying about the qualifying offer is that, well, look at the Sox history of drafting. That's no excuse. Do you know why you're in the rut you're in now? Because you don't have that many tradable assets in the minor league roster. How do you get tradable assets on the minor league roster? You draft them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And the thing about too with the 3 outcome stuff is, look, again, if you're younger, and even younger people in the game will say this. Yeah. It's we figured it out. This is going to be the way people hit for. People have been saying that for decade after decade with new fad, with new swing. Walt Hriniak and his swing was the swing of the future for 3 years until
Charlie Lau
out. And
Charlie Lau before him.
Yep. And once it's found out, it's exposed. And the 3 outcome, obviously, it's been exposed to the point where the game is having to try and neutralize pitchers by taking away their sticky stuff or by moving the rubber back 2 feet or whatever, a foot or 6 inches or whatever. Instead of just saying, hey, hitters, it's time for the new adaptivity. What's the next new trend? Okay. Mm-hmm. Instead of saying, well, shit, they're not hitting it. Let's just make it harder on the pitchers. No. Yes. How about this? There are dudes that don't struggle with strikeouts in the game today. What are they doing so well? When are we going to evolve that? Now, when are you going to say, I'm willing to trade a little bit of power for a little bit more gaps and more contact? And the game is cyclic. It's going to happen. The idea of the 3 outcome is great, but we see it even at the high school level, let alone the pro level. It's not that hard to beat if you can locate with good velocity because the swing will get you tied up. It's a blue zone everywhere from belly buttons to hands on the inner half. And that launch angle is great. We call that just hitting the ball in the air and just squaring up a baseball. It's just a new term, but it's the same thing. And so all of these things, it's cyclic. The baseball fads, you ask me in 15 years what we're doing in the game, and I can tell you almost with 100% certainty that in 15 years, we won't be talking about launch angle and 3 outcome. It'll be something else because, the game will have adapted. The technology constantly is evolving. You're even seeing drive lines starting to move away from the full boat all-in swing that we see with some of these 3 outcome guys. You're starting to see them find ways to actually untie that inside. And when they untie that, pitchers will then have to readapt because that will be a place now where they can no longer go to the well. And so that's the part about this that is really kind of fun. And that's what makes the game so great. That's why the game's been around for, 100 plus years at this point where we're looking at every hot trend that comes up. I mean, God, again, like Walt Hriniak and Lau and Bryant, the Doyle boys for a little bit in the mid 90s were like a big thing.
Who was it Hermosillo with the Cubs in the early 2000s? Like he was the next big.
Like the style?
Yeah, that style. Wasn't it Hermosillo?
Well, then you get people like Chili Davis getting fired because they're not 3 outcome. And being a hitting coach in a 3 outcome era, it just doesn't bode well. It's like banging your head against the wall. You're not going to get, again, he's been fired from the Cubs, been fired from the Mets. I don't think because he's a bad hitting instructor. I just think that he's trying to instruct. He's unfortunately an instructor that does well with guys that have a regular swing as opposed to that approach. And that approach, honestly, it
has to do with roster construction with Chili Davis. That's what it has to do with. Because the Yankees, as an example, before they made the trades for Rizzo and for Gallo, they were a total 3 outcome team. And they talked about how pitching to them was easy because you had 9 guys who were the same hitter.
Yep. It's not hard to go off the game plan.
No.
It's not a very diverse game plan.
Yeah.
Here, and then here. Like, let's go. Like, I love calling pitches when there's a dude, when you can see the guy, and at the high school level, it's worse because those kids aren't strong enough and they're still swinging 3 outcome. And you're like, guys, look, when you get older and stronger, you can adapt your swing to that 3 outcome. But bro, you aren't swinging that bat. That bat is swinging you already. And now you're going to tie yourself up. thank you, I guess. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's not hard to beat people. It's location and again, beating that hole, which is the whole part of the competition part is finding the holes in the swing and beating them. Same with being able to pick up a pitch and seeing tails and tips when you're in the box trying to face somebody throwing some cheddar on the bump. So it all works the same way. And again, in the 90s, pitchers were found out. Did you see the game try to make it harder on the hitters because the pitchers were struggling? No, they loved it. Everyone loves Glass Joe. Make every pitcher Glass Joe. And we don't pay pitchers nothing. Just throw BP out there at this point. But that's what you see.
I call that the ESPN effect. ESPN doesn't want to see highlights of a 2-to-1 pitchers duel. They want to see a 10-9 slugfest where the ball's going over the fence so you could get that idiot Chris Berman going back, and all that other crap. And
stop.
Yes, exactly.
Please.
I want to answer a couple things. I want to respond to a couple things in the chat. And if you're watching this live, feel free to jump into chat and tell us we're great, tell us we suck, whatever's on your mind. If you got winning lottery numbers, please put those in there too. That would be great. But, Jacob Swartley, I'm not going to give away who Jacob Swartley really is, but most of you already know.
He's Batman.
Exactly. He talks about they've never spent the money to identify the talent, in my opinion. You're absolutely right. They have neglected, and this is the White Sox. They neglected their minor league system for years because they always felt that those players were only there to be traded for the next PTP past their prime player that they could get to fill in for this year, not having a 5 or 10 year plan. And Jack, I don't know what Kevin's eating, and why do I suck? What did I do now?
I am straight up eating Taco Bell nachos and a cup of nacho cheese.
That's right. Yeah. And hopefully, since you're in Vegas, you're not only having Taco Bell, but you're having Jack sauce on it too.
That's only for the weekends. Oh, you mean Jack in the Box sauce? My bad. Sorry.
Yeah. But no, and part of the problem the White Sox have and why they were in the situation they were in that required a rebuild is because they kept drafting. They did not draft the best available talent. They drafted the best available talent within their price range, and they let a lot of players slip by their fingers because they, instead of addressing the best talent available, we need this. For years, it was draft pitching. We don't want to pay the price for pitching, so draft pitching. So you didn't draft position players very well. That's why you had all these terrible position players for years. That's why if you really look at the White Sox starting lineup right now, the effects of that can be seen. Moncada was acquired through a trade. Oh, hi, Betty. Tim Anderson,
where I disappeared to.
Yeah,
that's where I went.
Tim Anderson was a draft. Nick Madrigal, when he was there, was a draft, but everybody else that you had there was acquired via trade. Jose Abreu, Cuban international signing. Eloy Jimenez, trade. Luis Robert, international signing. Yasmani Grandal, free agent signing. This isn't how you build a sustained winner. This is how you build a 2 or 3 year ride, not a Yankee style team where you have the core 4 there for 15 years or something like that.
Sustained success.
Yes, you may have a core 4, absolutely, but you probably paid more than you should have to get that core 4.
Right. And it makes total sense. Again, I mean, I don't know if we're even going to be. I mean, it's going to take a lot of courage with any organization to take the gamble on overpaying their cores. I mean, we saw with the Cubs; they had an opportunity to keep their core, and it wasn't worth it to them. They go back to that mini rebuild. You know, the one team you don't see doing that is the Dodgers. The Dodgers just keep reloading like bastards. It's just, and you're going to see it again. Again, my prediction. I still firmly believe that KB is going to be a Dodger by the time opening day hits next year.
Well, he's going to be patrolling right field for the White Sox so that the 108 can cheer him on.
And the gotta have to pay at this point. And this is the weird part too. Again, all this stuff that you're starting to see certain players jockey in this negotiation. You can tell who's going to be negotiating from a position of power immediately in the offseason compared to players and the representation that believe that their players aren't going to have much power in negotiations. So you start seeing the player that's attached to multiple teams and blah, 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 blah. You're seeing players, Korea is, that was a weird attachment, but you're not seeing players like KB go out there. You're like, oh, look at, he's been attached. No, he's enjoying his time with his child right now. He's not even thinking about the contract. And you're seeing lesser players, and we'll get into this in a second too, but you're going to start seeing these guys that are questionable start using the media as their negotiating tool. And you're going to start seeing unnamed sources say that so-and-so team is extremely high on blankety blank when really in reality it's somebody else. And we're going and playing this game again. And that's just part of the beast as it is now. But I find it interesting to see how some of the rumors for the questionable, like I don't think they're worth what they're asking guys, are starting to pop up now at this point. Ahead of the CBA, which shows us, and we'll talk again about the CBA in a second, but it shows a little bit of desperation to get taken care of.
For some of the second, third tier players, they want to lock in before December 1st because that, and I'll be honest with you, that tells me they know it's coming.
Yep. And I can be honest, I was wrong on this. I have said you'd be crazy to sign a contract before the collective bargaining agreement. But you know what? I guess I should have prefaced that with, unless someone drops a gigantic safe of cash on your head, and of course you take it. If someone offers you above market, what's his name? The Dodgers. I mean, guys, $8.3 million last year. He's getting what, 16, 17 now on this with this. You're crazy if you don't take a double up and pay.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But taking a contract before the CBA has a little bit of sack to it. Like I'm curious, and we'll talk again in a few minutes when we get back to that about. I don't know. I have some conspiracy theories, I guess. My own.
Well, and I'm going to say one more thing about the White Sox right field situation, and I can't help this. It all goes back to the 2018-2019 offseason because the White Sox pursued the wrong guy and fucked it up. It's not only that they pursued the wrong guy, they fucked it up too. The answer was there all along, and I wrote a couple articles about how Bryce Harper was the answer, the long-term answer for the White Sox, not only in right field, but from a marketing standpoint and everything else. But he had the boogeyman attached to him. And, the White Sox don't talk to the boogeyman. Granted, they did sign a contract with Dallas Keuchel, who has the boogeyman as his agent, but I think that was more of Keuchel's desperation, if you will, or lack of suitors, if you will. But to me, this all revolves back to the 2018-2019 offseason and the terrible pursuing the wrong guy and the terrible pursuit of the wrong guy. People will argue, well, if they sign him, maybe they don't sign Grandal and everything else. Valid points. That's a valid point. But my core argument is they pursued the wrong guy because they still have a hole at the position that they've had basically, to be honest with you, since Jermaine Dye left? And even in his last couple years, Dye was a shell of what he was before. You could even say since Maglio left, since Maglio got injured and left. And that's 2004?
Quick interruption, because you mentioned this, by the way. Yes, I did see the Brazil trailer while I was kind of scrolling through, and yes, Lizard got punched, and there's a reaction, but he's hit by an invisible force, so that means there's probably a Spiderman in that scene that's punching him that was edited out in post. Sorry, just I had seen that fade out. I had thrown that in there, so I wanted to clear that. I saw that too as I was scrolling through my timeline because somebody shared it. I think maybe even Justin shared it in the chat. So, sorry.
Yeah, very possible. Was it Justin or was it Yumper?
Maybe it was Jumper. It could have been. They're both on par, on point with their share. Their shares are cares, really.
Yes. This is true.
So we look at this too, and again.
So the
now,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, like, as a transition, because we started talking a little bit about the analytics and the balance of analytics, how much you should rely on analytics compared to the flesh and blood aspect of the game. And you and I were talking before we went on the air about like, is there balance? Can there be balance, or should we go all data? I obviously I don't think there's a single person in this world that thinks no data. Obviously, that would be insane. The eye test alone doesn't ever work. Obviously, It works terribly because you can tell in the morning I walk out thinking I look sexy. When I'm going out at night on a Saturday night, I think I look great. And then that's the eye test. And the analytics don't also indicate that to be true. So the same kind of concept is going on with the game and how. So we started talking, you and I, about like how much do we go? Because there were some posts today about analytics. And in this decision-making process, how much decisions how many of these decisions have to be made solely on the data intake? And how much of these are being, how much of the human element is starting to be evaluated as well in all of this? Like you talked about, like a lot of these numbers rely on uneven playing fields sometimes, whether it's the player going through some sort of issue at home or a player that has a baby, his wife has a baby and he's not sleeping for a week because he's been taking care of his brand new child. And how does that affect a 2 to 3 week stretch, or even more if they can't get caught back up physically and emotionally and in their rest and their body and their skating and all that. So you have all these things. And so how much do we take in, and even more so with analytics, how much of analytics, how many teams finished at 500 or better in Major League Baseball and how many teams didn't? And how often do we take data that includes those shitbirds and then we wonder why this team struggles in the postseason against good pitching? Well, again, are we isolating the right stuff in making these decisions, or are we using the 162 games? Everything's the same, because it's not the same when you have a team that's up 6-0 and a guy that in the 7th inning hits a grand slam. That's a dog. That's just padding stats right there. That's not a real indication. It's the bottom of the 7th inning. They've got their bullpen thumbers out there trying to kill innings. So, like, is that?
Yeah, I call that an Aramis Ramirez.
Ooh, jumper.
But no,
I think that analytics. What do you think is the balance? What are your thoughts? Rip it out.
Okay. With the analytics, if they use the baseline, here's my problem with the baseline. The weather in Arizona in April is not the same as the weather in Chicago or New York in April, or even Milwaukee for that matter in April. There's many a game I've attended at guaranteed rate, and I'm sure, Yumper, anyone can testify to this, where they've gone to other parks, whether it's Wrigley or Citi Field, Yankee Stadium, Philadelphia, wherever. A ball hit in April may land at the warning track. One hit in July is over the fence. You hit it the same, but the weather conditions control where, how much resistance is on the ball and everything else. There are factors that just can't be accounted for.
Right. Mm-hmm. And
a hurricane roaring into town, causing a week to, or here's a great one. The White Sox a couple years ago lost an entire series to the Twins in April because they got snowed out. It snowed every day. So they had to come back and play double headers on other road trips and also come back on a day off for a makeup game.
I want to say, was it last year? Was it last year the Cubs had or maybe it was 2 years ago. I think the Cubs had 63 straight days without a day off because of makeup games.
That had to be
going to September,
19.
going into September too. It was August and September, every day, and they had double headers thrown in there.
Right.
So those factors you cannot quantify those with statistics. You cannot. That is the human toughness factor that is immeasurable with any kind of metric or data. Can't.
And I'm going to be a real jerk with my next statement.
Oh boy.
I'm going to use two examples. Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. Don't the metrics say Trout was the best player for a long time and Shohei was the best player for this past season? Don't the metrics say that?
Mm-hmm.
Where'd their teams finish?
Last.
Right, exactly. So how much do those metrics matter to a team? Is it, it's what was the bugaboo about Alex Rodriguez all those years? Great player, but didn't win.
Yep. And he left a bad team.
Yes. You know, what's the bugaboo about Mike Trout? What's the bugaboo about Mike Trout becoming? Great player, can't win, being wasted with the Angels.
Yup, makes a great point too, though. He says, "Thing is, baseball is a 25-player game."
Yes.
100% is really the case. You can have a Mike Trout and a Shohei in your lineup, but if there's nothing else,
right,
you play chess around it. You pitch around. You work the system, and there's so much data that, again, this is the thing too. Like I love data. I love it.
There's definitely a place for it. I'm not saying there's not, but you also have to apply critical thinking with it too. You can't just look at the number and go, "Oh, this is an 8-WAR player. It's great. What's the rest of his team look like? Is it Mike Trout and 24 dogs? They're going to be in last place."
And and this is hot take coming through. I personally don't believe the analytics make a hell of a bit of a difference in the postseason.
Nope.
I think that the postseason is when you take those numbers, you use them as a guide, a gauge, but in the end, the decision making in the postseason is 100% sometimes predicated on gut. Like the numbers, like you could just feel if you go out to talk to your pitcher, right? Little trick, by the way, for those of you that aren't aware of, this is what coaches do when they go out to talk to their pitchers. We never see a coach and he goes out to talk to his pitcher in a big situation, like possibly like, is he going to pull him or not? And you see them put their hand right on their shoulder, like talking to him. Hey, buddy, whatever they're saying, right? It ain't because they are fond of that player. That coach is checking his pulse, but doing it in a manner the player is unaware that he's feeling for that. And when you feel that, let's go to the left.
Yep.
Right on. You put your hand there and you're like, this dude's fucking dead.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, gotcha, bro. Like, especially the kind of, because again, pitchers will look you in the eye and they'll lie right to your face. I feel great, coach. I'm right out. I got
this guy.
Oh, absolutely.
I got this guy.
Mm-hmm. And throw it through his barrel.
and if you want to know what this is, there is an incredible example that was caught on film of this. It is when Dick Williams goes out to talk to Goose Gossage in Game 5 of the 1984 World Series. Mm-hmm. And Goose is sitting there telling him, "I'll strike him out." Gibson takes the next pitch and launches it to the moon.
Worst feeling as a coach, because when you're a young coach, you want to, like, yeah, he does got this. He's got it. Let's go. Yeah. And then he gets to put 3-run homer, and you're like, you lying son of a bitch. And you're like, shit. So you learn that lesson over time, and as you become an older, more, I guess we'll call the old butt coaches, you realize how to like figure out when a kid is shitting his pants, but trying to tell you the right thing, trying to keep that stiff upper lip. Yeah. And when they're actually ice cold in their veins and they're literally about to shove it up. And so you just have to be able, that's not quantifiable again in data. That look in a tight moment, maybe there's a situation, maybe he got embarrassed when he was a 12-year-old kid and he was pitching and he accidentally shit his pants in a pair of white pants and was embarrassed and humiliated. And it was the same exact situation and it just triggered something. And he looks like, Craig Kimbrell post White Sox trade. And all of a sudden you start seeing that shit happen. So you don't know if there's some trauma there. And the data doesn't equate to that. And it's hard. So that's what makes, again, for me, the postseason, you take the data, you make your lineups with the data, you kind of try and pick your matchups ahead of time, knowing this guy hits well against this guy's, knowing all that. But in the game, in the heat of the battle, just like in any kind of like, again, high octane, high leverage moment, whether it's in games in sports or whether it's in, warfare or in a corporate environment or in a production room when you're trying to make a television show. When you have that intent, it's just different. The decision making has to be made with all of it in mind. And again, the numbers don't really help in that kind of situation. The numbers tell you what, over the course of a long period of time, things are. But in the hair on fire frenetic pace of a postseason where one decision could completely alter the whole series, like maybe leaving a guy in one at bat too long with was it Giolito in the postseason game that left him in first? Yes. They left him one extra guy, and that guy, he had a deep pisser caught, but then he was like a walk and a double, right? And then like that blew open, I think was a game 2.
Yes.
I want to say and that was a situation that had Katz and La Russa said immediately after that piss rocket,
time to go.
Lucky. Bye-bye. They didn't though. They're like, oh, he got an out. And they believed a little too much.
And there's another
decision process. Even if the matchup was great, it was not great at that moment.
There's another great historic example of that specific situation. Pedro in Game 7, 2003 ALCS, when Grady Little goes out to ask him, can you take this guy? And everyone and their mother knew Pedro was done, that he was spent, but they kept him in for that at-bat against Posada. And that's when Posada roped it down, I want to say down the right field line, and the Yankees tied the game, which led to the Aaron Boone home run in the 12th inning or whatever it was.
Sorry, just reading the chat.
Yeah. But and just let me say, Yumper, to your point about Cubs had one of the greatest shortstops that never made it to the postseason. He also was the author of the shortest book ever written, All My Octobers by Ernie Banks.
Oh. Too soon.
I think Ron Santo has tied the record for that too.
His book was. Does somebody have a Zagnut? What?
But and the other point about the analytics, I think where your team is in the spectrum plays into the analytics as well. If you're the Pittsburgh Pirates, as an example, you're just looking for warm bodies. So you're not really going to focus on splits and things like that. But if you're a team that is in theory in their contention window, you're going to look at the players out there and say, how does this guy compare against left-handers? Oh, my division is right-handed heavy, so I want a guy who can hit right-handers. How does this guy hit it, at Detroit? How does he hit in Minnesota? How does he hit against those teams? I think where your team is in the life cycle of the window plays a big factor in how much analytics is looked at. But it's not the only thing looked at. They look at the composition of the player too, because there's some players where they go, this guy will not be a fit in this clubhouse. Here's an example, Milton Bradley. How did that work out?
Not like a great board game.
Right, exactly.
Not like Candyman. Game of Life. I've got 6 kids in my car. What the hell? Where are you driving your car in the Game of Life? Oh, Utah. Sorry. Old habits with that game. Yeah, I'd have 7 kids. I don't know. I feel like I had a lucky spin. I played that game. I would always say, I have 5 more kids. But yeah, so sorry. Milton Bradley did not work out well though. And that more so is his personality. Right? I mean,
yes.
That's not quantifiable either. Clubhouse cancers are not measured in WAR or OPS. They are measured in how much does a player make his teammates better? How much does he elevate their games? And I will say this 1,000 times. The dudes you want in your clubhouse are the dudes that sit and watch all their teammates hit. Not the ones that go get their work in and then head back to the clubhouse to go play on their phone or eat a snack or go grunch down on some double cheeseburgers in the hallway. Whatever it is, the dudes that sit around and say, hey, I was watching your swing there in that round, and it looked like you were just overcommitting a little bit, maybe turning over the top hand just a tad. So maybe if you just, maybe open up that back shoulder, making little tweaks and giving suggestions, making your teammates better, going out there and saying, hey, man, can I go hit you some extra fungos? You come hit me. Can you want to go take some, doing things to improve their teammates and finding ways to influence them, being a good mentor. These are things, again, that don't get equated by the numbers. And if we continue to be slaves to these numbers only, you're going to miss out on the guys that have the captains. You need the captains because there are obvious slapdicks in the league that need to sometimes get popped in the back of the head to get sent back and remind them, fall in line there, chief, or get out of the clubhouse because we're either going to forward together or you can get off on this next exit. And those types of players, you can't measure. There's no teammate analytic that you can find out there. You just have to look at patterns. How do players speak about the guy? Like how again, are you watching, of what which guys are hanging out of the cage longer with their teammates when there's no real benefit to them hanging out there, like giving of their own time, really. They don't have to be there. You can go get your hit licks in and go back to your clubhouse and go sit on the chair and throw a towel over your head or whatever. Or you can take your own time and hang out with your teammates and work with them. And there's guys that do that. I think a ton. that you want those guys in your clubhouse. And those guys get lost in the shuffle sometimes. They might be a 260 hitter, but they might make a 275 hitter hitting in front of them, a 290 hitter. And that's what we don't.
And there's a great example of that happened this past year. Billy Hamilton talked exactly about Tim Anderson doing that for him. Billy Hamilton talked about it at length, how Tim Anderson every day would support him and say, hey, try this, hey, try that, hey, great job, and everything else. That's something you can't measure. And I'll give you another story. I've had the good fortune to play golf with Goose Gossage a couple times. And one thing, he said a lot of things, but one thing that really sticks with me is he talked about how Dick Allen should absolutely be in the Hall of Fame. And he was Dick Allen's biggest supporter for the Hall of Fame. And he said the reason is because when he came up as a rookie with the Sox, Dick Allen was with the Sox at the time.
Uh-huh.
Dick Allen sat down next to him after he had a rough outing, sat down in the dugout next to him and said, listen, you got the talent to go all the way. You got the talent to make it to the Hall of Fame. You just need to learn how to pitch and how to identify hitters and their tendencies. He goes, how I would hit you, this is what I would do. And he laid out exactly how he would approach him. Say, generally, you're throwing a fastball on the first pitch. I'd let that thing go because I probably can't hit it.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, then you have a tendency to throw outside second pitch. Third pitch is when I'm going to zone you in because you're thinking I don't see what your pattern is, but I see exactly what your pattern is. And even though you can throw it 100 miles an hour, if you're throwing it straight, I can hit it if I'm geared up for it.
Yep.
And he said that was one of the most invaluable things he's ever learned.
That's one of the cool parts of, I mean, again, all communities have their community, I guess, but I guess in Vegas, it feels a little bit tighter with the baseball community. And the off season here is such a really cool time because if you go out, again, it's going to start here. And this is actually going to be so rad because I have my time off right now. I'm not coaching this year. So usually I'm at practice when this stuff happens or I'm at school. And now I don't have to be anywhere after school right now. But these dudes, they'll go roll out to Aviator Stadium out here near my house during the off season on a Wednesday or maybe every Tuesday, Thursday, and they'll go out there and they'll hit and they'll throw live bullpens with each other and everyone will just kind of go out there to work out. And the Aviators are so cool with letting them out there because it's all the local guys. They all live here. They're all high school products or they moved here, like a Shane Victorino, like those guys popped in here too, and they go out there and they work out together. And that is one of the cool things because I feel like the Vegas community baseball wise has an actual identity now. And I think that's been growing for 20, 30, almost 40 years probably now at this point when you go all the way back to Greg Maddox.
It's going to grow a lot more in the next couple of years. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
Which we're going to bring up here in just 2 seconds. We got a couple of concrete dates that'll tell us everything we need to know about what's going to happen here, which also might play into a theory I may have.
I think I know what your theory is because I was thinking the exact same thing this afternoon. But go ahead.
But yeah, so you've got this. Again, you've got this community that works together and goes out there and makes each other better. Iron sharpens iron, right? And so I'm actually pretty jacked because I'll be able to go out there. I'll put, obviously, whenever I do get out there, because again, I think I have at least 4 guys that I've coached that'll be out there in some capacity. I mean, Tanner is obviously rehabbing in Arizona, so he won't be out there. McDougal with the White Sox, but he's doing well. He's going to come on the Pinwheels and Ivy in a couple weeks, actually. We might get him on here one of these days, but I don't know. We might be better off getting his dad on here.
I think his dad would be
Mike's more our style.
Yes, I think his dad would be much more fun. Just tell his dad he knows what shirt he needs to wear.
Absolutely.
And tell that to Tanner, too.
And so, but these guys will be all working together. So I'm going to go out there and obviously I'm sure I'll pop over there and I can't wait. I just love watching those dudes work because they are.
Because they're professionals. They understand it's more than just a game to them, if you will.
And look at some of these other guys. Like, again, you don't see all the stuff that dudes are doing on home, but you can't help but see some of these guys, like here in Vegas, that's always on the news. Mm-hmm. I don't see some players, especially big names that are looking for big contracts, out, hey, this dude was hitting with his high school team, or how is, I know it sounds stupid, but I always judge kind of, it does sound bad. Maybe it's because I'm biased, because I am one, but how a pro player treats and communicates with their old coach, unless their old high school coach was a bastard, how they how the relationships they keep with those people actually matter because it shows their staying power with relationships and the kind of character and that's built like along. It's just like having a little league coach that you still talk to. You talk to them because things are good and you obviously don't forget where you came from. And I love to see that stuff too. You've got guys like
Giolito's a great example.
Yes,
his high school coach is now his pitching coach.
Yeah, and that's a perfect example. There's so much comfort in that kind of stuff in that routine, but it also shows that they're not bridge burners. They don't leave things behind and then leave it trashed and move on to the next hotel room like Ozzy Osbourne in the 80s. You go and you continually, you don't burn bridges. You can return somewhere. You don't shit where you eat.
Yes.
And see, Beef says it right. He's a professional accountant, but he doesn't talk to his high school accounting teacher. He's got bad character. I don't trust him. I don't trust him.
I agree.
As far as I could throw him.
It's just he forgot where he came from.
Yeah, he's big league accountant.
Yeah,
professional.
He's a meat eater, so he forgot where he came from.
It's just you throw out a diet challenge and he's doing great, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, he's posting pictures of 3 giant McRibs on a plate, and you know that he's tapping out.
Today he was bragging about eating a salad for lunch.
A salad? Yeah, he was a lettuce wrapped McRib is what it was. They don't cost a salad. Come on.
Love you, Beef. You're my guy.
Absolutely, especially without a shirt. So, it just makes the sound. The sound of rubbing his chest hair is just. Oh no, it does not. That sounds like rubbing a robot's chest. That actually didn't sound like it at all.
Yeah, let's not do that.
No, whoops. Nothing wrong with McRibs. I actually had one last year though, in honor of you, and legitimately, it was all over my face. Oh, you look like you have a clown face, basically. You got your Red Wings, and that's what it looked like to me. I was like, okay, that's enough. And then I don't know. My gullet can't handle it like the way the Beef does. I love it that the Beef Loaf loves the McRib. I know that I personally, I'm not a big fan of it, but I am a big fan, and Svo will agree with me. The mini tacos at Jack in the Box are fantastic. So anyway,
are you kidding? Jack in the Box, those tacos all day long, man. Deep fry them with that wax cheese in there. I'm all for it. But I will say this: Jack in the Box has kick-ass breakfasts.
I look. Here's me in high school: 20 bag of $1 sausage McMuffin with egg, a giant Coke, and go to film on Saturday mornings. With the flinging them out.
That was me after working midnights on my way to class, hitting the McDonald's drive-thru, getting a couple egg McMuffins and a Diet Coke. Let's go.
One of my favorite things in college was when the Burger King started doing the Burgers for Breakfast campaign. I would roll into my 8 o'clock with like 2 King burgers, or whatever they're called, or like 2 Whoppers, and I would be literally in the front row eating these stinky ass Whoppers, and everyone's like, "What the fucking fit?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm hungry, dude. It's 8 a.m. I don't think I slept last night." So, but anyway, so now we talked about okay, we did kind of allude to it a little bit, kind of get back to not talking about delicious fast food. But the CBA moves, the pre-CBA moves have happened. We got Thor from formerly of the New York Mets signing a contract. We've got a couple. What the Dodgers obviously locking up. Was it Mike Millie? No. What the? Jeez.
Oh.
And then today, what was the big contract today that was signed?
Well, it was Thor's contract today. The numbers on that are just. Are the Angels that desperate? So, for those who don't know, the Angels.
Haney, that's his name, Haney.
Oh,
sorry.
yes.
Haney and the Dodgers.
Yes. But Thor signed a contract with the Angels today for a 1 year, $21 million contract for a guy who has pitched 2 innings in the last 2 years. I guess the Angels think that the arm is well rested. But I will give Syndergaard credit for this incredibly smart approach that he took, because it came out that he wanted to make his decision on Monday so that he could take the physical Tuesday. In case he failed the physical, he can then on Wednesday accept the qualifying offer from the Mets, which is brilliant.
He's taking the field goal on 3rd down. He's attempting the field goal with 12 seconds to go in the game on third down, just in case he fumbles the snap.
Yes.
I love it. I think it's really smart. And Eduardo Perez from Boston signs a 5-year, $77 million contract with the Red Sox.
And then the Barrios extension, as Beefloaf mentioned as well.
An opt-out and a no-trade clause, which you're going to see,
Yes.
see these guys are protecting themselves pre-CBA with these no-trade clauses. Jose Barrios, 7-year extension with the Blue Jays, 7 years, $131 million. And again, you're starting to see these guys. So again, we talked about it a little bit earlier. I thought people were insane to think that these guys would sign these contracts before the CBA because there's no guarantees of anything, and it's happening. And so obviously I was wrong. But you're not seeing major names still do this. Like again, Syndergaard is a big name, but he's also he hasn't been
Syndergaard in over 2 years.
He hasn't been competitive for like 2-3 years.
Yeah.
And these, but you're not gonna see like I don't think you'll see a Chris Bryant or I'd really still be shocked if Correa signed a contract before the CBA. This is such big money and so many different things. But I started to think about this today. Is that all these it feels unprecedented because again, everybody in the game has told me, don't expect much. It's going to get boring until the CBA is figured out. I've been told that countless times. But then now we're seeing all this stuff happen. And I'm like, what's the play here? We know the owners can't be trusted. We know these bastards are going to try and we know the CBA is coming. What's the scam? What's the con? What's the grift?
I know you have conspiracy theories about it. I have one too.
What do you got?
I think that some of these guys may be signing for these contracts because they know there's a salary cap coming, but there might be like grandfathering for contracts that were signed before the CBA was put in place.
That's plausible. Mine's a little more nefarious. I do believe deep down, I think right now, because again, I don't trust these people. I've seen it. I've seen legit just the Jed Hoyer Monday morning stupidity thing.
And don't forget Ben Cherington in Pittsburgh. You have firsthand experience with that.
That one too. Yeah, those guys can eat it. Dizzle. You see some of these mid to lower tier guys start signing these deals pre-CBA. I could see the owners throwing in an extra $1 million or $2 million now to lock up some of these names just so that when they go to the negotiating table, there will be more players with more to lose on the other end of a work stoppage. Thus, they would be more inclined to encourage their union to take a lesser deal for those, again, because they're not the top tier. They're not getting paid a lot. So this will help them in their regular lives. And so it basically creates almost like a foundational army on the other side of negotiations to say, hey, look, if we don't play, I'm in trouble, man. I need to make some money. I take the deal, man. Let's just play. Where it's more rash decisions. And I feel like the owners then are willing to pay a couple extra million now because in the end, when they finish this negotiation and if they get what they really want, it's going to make they spend an extra $30 million. Say one franchise spends an extra $30 million overpaying, right?
Angels.
Ahead of the CBA, right? But then their owner in the new system that's set up over the course of the next 365 days makes a $65 to $70 million profit. That $30 million, okay,
cost of doing business.
A little to make a little, right? And so even if it's an extra million, $31 million, that's still $1 million more. So I think that I feel like the owners are doing this to create chaos in the negotiating process by paying some people that need it now and need the season to start on time so they can pay the bills, so to speak. Boom. And so that's why you shouldn't see anybody, the big names after, before the CBA. But that's, again, this is what I was thinking. But I can't look at the owners and go, what's the play here? Like, to me, there's something going on, and fans would be very naive to buy it hook, line, and sinker, especially with the water carriers and the media that are the kind of the mouthpieces of ownership. You know who they are. They're not everybody. And there's, Nightingales with Jerry. But people like Jeff Passan are with the players. So like you've got guys that people are journalists out there that aren't water carriers, but you also have a lot that are happy to get some access in return for plugging that negotiation line and getting extra print and extra clicks. That's just a given. So yeah, I just think it is. That's my conspiracy theory, though, is that they're paying some of these guys early enough to create an environment in which these dudes, when they go to the table, they're like, dude, take it. It's a great deal. Yeah, no. Shove a White Castle burger in my face and tell me it's a steak. Why don't you? Like that's, they're willing to take that White Castle over the steak every time because they need food. In this case, they need to get that earning. So I don't know. That's just kind of my theory. I don't know. Maybe I'm just completely out of my head. I really am so shocked again, based on what everybody had been telling me, that there's this much action, let alone, action, a ton of action. So I was wrong, I guess. I can't believe it. It doesn't make sense to me, but got me thinking about the whys and to dig deeper. It's, again, we'd be fools to accept the owners and what they want for face value. They've proven nothing, if anything, that they can't be trusted. So they won't even open their books. So until they open their books, I can't trust any of them.
Well, there's one team whose books have to be open. There's one team whose books have to be open. The Atlanta Braves, because they're owned by Liberty Media, which is a public company. So you could go look at their financials. That is included in the Liberty Media annual report. And I just want to hit on what Yumper mentioned here. Players would be stupid to agree to a salary cap. That's absolutely true. But if the players are demanding a salary floor, the immediate response from the owners is going to be, okay, we'll give you a floor so that you don't have teams like the Marlins and the Pirates, but you got to give us a cap. And if they did put a salary cap and a salary floor in place, as an example, do you know who I think who would profit from it the most? It wouldn't be the second tier players. It would open up the markets for the Chris Bryants of the world and everyone else. Because let's say you have Miami as an example, and they're 30 million underneath this salary floor. Hey, let's go get a Chris Bryant and give him 20 million, and let's go get Carlos Rodon and pay him 10 million. That's who it would benefit, because they wouldn't go get, let's go get these 7 or 8 guys for 3 million each, or whatever it works out to be.
I actually just read this too. Someone wrote, the Syndergaard signing is basically impossible to judge now, as it's dependent on the Angels' ability to add 2 to 3 more rotational options. Got to have that healthy mix of volatile upside picks, Rodon, Kikichu, and Chad inning eaters. I don't know what that means, but Greinke, Anderson, Tyler Anderson, I'm assuming. That's not a bad point either, too. Again, I don't know, all this stuff is just, I'm so confused at this point. One thing I've learned over the course of the last calendar year, 2, 3, whatever how it's been now, since all this negotiation stuff's been coming up with like Shreve and with KB. I know this. You put me on the baseball field. We do practice. We work on stuff. You have me teach the game itself. No problem. I have definitely learned that I know absolutely nothing about the economic side of the game. And this is, I guess, why baseball dudes hire agents to handle this part of it and to kind of break it down and explain it to them. But, my level of understanding with the whole corporate side and the contractual side and the business side, I guess, of baseball comes from what I'm told from those guys, my guys that are doing it right now, like KB and Chasen and Ryan Pineda and, Tanner as he's going through all this. And, a couple of the other guys, I think Chase is still going, Bradford's out there. And that's my experience on it. So like some of this stuff, like, I guess if I explain it, if I'm getting explained to me by someone that doesn't understand. Now, KB, when he explains it, he was the union rep for the Cubs for a while. So that I would assume and he's a financial, what is it? Business
major.
Yeah. But business finance, actually, I think, or finance. I think it's just finance major. And so it's just weird to me though, because all this and I'm sitting here and it makes me scratch my head. Like, I'm like, why? Like, to me, I'd be like, well, why would I want any unknowns into the equation? And for me, an unknown would be, I guess I'm more optimistic. What could I have gotten on the other side of the CBA that's more beneficial? Because you feel like there's going to have to be some player improvements to the CBA, whether it's, better treatment of minor league players or, protection, service time stuff and that type of stuff gets included. I guess I just don't get it. Like, to me, and again, I don't understand the baseball business side. I really don't. I know my players, I want them to do well. I mean, again, that's it. So that kind of contract stuff, like, again, when someone's like, how much do you think KB's going to get a year? What do you think? I'm like, what's normal? I guess I don't know what is normal. Like, I don't know. And that's this whole part of this whole process. It's just so intriguing to me because I try and learn, but again, we don't know what goes on behind those closed doors. But I just, this bucks anything that felt like to me like total logic, which is probably not going to see a lot of action until after they get something in place. But obviously, I'm fine. No clue.
Well, and I'm just wondering if Semien, as an example, there's been a lot of chatter about him signing before December 1st. And there's also a lot of chatter about Correa signing before December 1st. And I would bet money there's one team that Correa will not be going to. And he sort of made his case for not going to that team yesterday when he went out and said Derek Jeter was the worst defensive shortstop ever. Granted, there's some validity to his argument, but besmirching the captain of the New York Yankees, not going to work for you, especially with your history with the Yankees. So I think, he's probably out in New York, and they don't need him. They don't need him in Queens because they already have Lindor locked in for forever. So I'm just wondering if, and this goes to, what Yumper's been putting in the chat, the players can argue there's a luxury tax. Absolutely there is. But teams can exceed that luxury tax. If you put a cap in, that's it, man. If it's a hard cap, that's it. That's all they can go to. And the owner's argument could be that by creating a floor, it's like the rising tide lifts all boats. That they're increasing more money for everybody, even though they might be on the back, on the high side, they are, drawing it down. But they're saying we're taking this from, the Pirates spending $40 million to requiring them to spend $80 million. So that's $40 million more of money available for players.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be the argument that they use. Now, I'm not saying whether or not it's going to work because I personally think there's a lot of bad blood in that negotiation for the way the owners have taken the players over to coals the last couple times.
And the COVID stuff too, that was brutal.
Yes.
The COVID negotiations were awful. They were awful. I know that was a really, if anything, that set the tone for a little bit more of an antagonistic negotiation process now, because it was not pretty then. And that was like during a pandemic when we should all have been, when baseball was needed for everybody, not just for money making, but for actually like, hey,
sanity.
Give us something normal for a second. They couldn't even come together for that. Like when our country needed it, right? Or the world needed some distractions, they couldn't come together. So but you're you're right though. And you're going to see a lot of the negotiations, a lot more leaks here soon. We're in that leak.
Yes.
We're in the leakage window now at this point.
And depending on what the leaks are, you can tell who's being more of a hard ass in the negotiation based on what the leaks are.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's the owners leaking, they're probably doing it to belittle the players.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's the players leaking, they're doing it to look at these billionaires trying to deny us from making money, and the Scrooge McDucks of the world keeping all the money for themselves so they can go in a vault and jump in a pile of $20 bills or whatever.
I mean, you saw it the other day. I don't know. I guess it was obviously the owners floated it. Using fan graphs to decide arbitration value. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Oh my God. You're using a one specific website, which is fantastic. They do a great job, but you're relying on that as opposed to the arbitration process itself, which allows the player to argue outside of the analytics, which for the owners, analytics alone is much better for their value. You can't say that someone's worth a little bit more, even if their numbers are bad, if you take away the human part of it, like we were talking about earlier. Yep. So if we only go straight analytics, the captains of the world are going to be obsolete, which means you don't have to pay somebody as much, which again, arbitration is 100%, the most painful process because feelings get hurt. It's basically, this is why you're not worth what you think you are, basically. And that sucks. That's a terrible thing. That's why you always applaud like ownership groups that make sure that they don't go to arbitration in the first place, but it happens. But this is going to be interesting to see how that pops out on the other side. But speaking of head-to-head battles and of punching and punching back and chopping down trees and whatnot. But last Thursday, me and Pete both had the opportunity to go to a special one night only screening separately, but together. Oh.
Yes.
To go watch the Sylvester Stallone recut of Rocky IV. They changed the name obviously to Rocky versus Drago. It is available on Amazon now?
Amazon, and you can purchase it on iTunes as well.
Gotcha. So if you do want to check it out, it felt like it didn't feel. I guess it says 40.
It's the same. It's the same length.
Yeah, it didn't feel longer. It was just stuff was cut out and other stuff was added, which we'll get into that. But both Pete and I, huge Rocky fans, and huge Rocky IV, one of the best, if not the best, of all the Rockies, and such a great microcosm of that time period and the Russian, Soviet, the red, the Iron Curtain and the Cold War, and breaking down the walls, and how so funny that we filmed all of our films were so patriotic in the 80s, and how Russia was always like the big bad guy. And I love the training montage, which by the way takes place in our man Jeff the Giant in his backyard. It was actually where they filmed the Russia training sequences in British Columbia, actually. So that those shots are actually Jeff's back door. Apparently, that's Jeff's cabin. I think that's where Rocky trained.
Was it? I thought they said it was Vale.
No. They I actually watched at the end credits. I stayed for the end credits, just hoping like there'd be like Sylvester Stallone would pop on like, "Hello, it's a live stream about the movie."
Hope you like the movie.
Oh, sorry. Anyways,
I did see the one where he talked about how they had to rush him to the hospital because he took a punch.
Oh,
and and his heart hit his rib cage.
Yes, Vancouver, British Columbia. Yes. I was shot in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and Vancouver, British Columbia.
Okay.
And Bally's Las Vegas Hotel and Casino.
Yes. Which, by the way, the James Brown Living in America sequence.
That was fantastic. So much better.
Especially on those couple of shots where you see him just standing there smiling.
Mm-hmm.
Like or not Drago. Singing, just smiling.
Drago, too. Like, it actually showed, it actually felt like Drago, well, not as much a sympathetic character, but this version of Drago was much more, there was more to this one than just the robot, like that he was in the original, where he's like a machine. There's moments when he's coming up during that scene, the ring comes up, and I feel like they lingered a little bit longer on some shots and some angles of him watching all the spandex and all the glitz and glamour, going like, that's actually not too bad. Like you can see a point. I think he smirks at one point, like, "Hey, like, it might be nice to be champion in the U.S. Maybe I'll, maybe this is my chance. I could just run and I can defect over to the United States if I just run out of this ring real quick and just be like, help me, James Brown." I don't know. I picture literally like, you must save me.
Yes, but it was great seeing it on the big screen because I hadn't seen it on the big screen since I went and seen it at the old Ford City Theater in 1985.
Cinedome 12 for me here in Vegas.
Yes. Yeah. I went and seen it at Oak Brook Thursday night, but when I saw it, when it first came out in 85, it was at the old Ford City Theater on the Cicero Avenue side, which is long gone. It was a JJ or H.H. Gregg or whatever the hell the store is, and I think it's sitting empty now. But I loved the new beginning. They completely changed the beginning of the movie, and I loved the new one versus the old one. Basically, the old one had him finishing up the fight with Mr. T, Clubber Lang, and him beating Clubber Lang, and then the fight with the two of them in the gym by themselves, sparring at the very end when
Apollo,
Apollo says, when he goes, "How long you been thinking about this?" 3 years. So
someone read that bell. Ding,
yeah, ding, ding. Yes, that's all gone. That is all gone. It's now Apollo confronting Rocky when he's doing soul searching after losing to Clubber Lang, and talking about the Eye of the Tiger. And then they go through the training sequence of him on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought you had a great point about it with how they slowed how they slowed Apollo down and
They
put
shot
him,
him- yeah, they shot
and
him
like
dead.
had the distance cameras, so
Yeah.
it didn't look like it was the midget versus the tall guy.
Right. The depth of field between a guy that's 5'7" and a guy that's 6'3".
Right.
It's like putting Vince Vaughn next to like the guy that played Mini Me. Hey, Warwick Davis, hang out here. This is my friend Vince Vaughn. Now we're just gonna shoot. We're gonna go shoot Willow right next to the camera, like face to it, and then we're gonna Vince Vaughn. You're gonna go stand on the beach about 100 yards back. Now you're about the same height. There you go.
And the one part I liked, and I know you were a little down about, they've absolutely eliminated that annoying fucking robot.
Seiko.
Yes, absolutely eliminated it. Is not in the movie at all, and they really minimized Rocky's kid in the movie too, in the new one now, because I do remember some scenes where Rocky's kid and a couple friends were watching the fight in their bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
That's all gone.
Yep.
And the choreographed fight sequence at the end between Rocky and Drago is incredible.
Yeah.
It's absolutely incredible.
Look, I honestly, I was on the other direction of this. I was so excited to see that it was a director's cut with 40 minutes of additional footage that had never been seen. And I really, really was under the impression that we were going to get a love scene between Paulie and the robot. I wanted like the sexy NC-17 version, was like, bah, 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 bah. And she's like, happy birthday, Paulie. Happy birthday, Polly. Happy birthday, Polly. And you know, like almost like Hans, like Lando Calrissian in the Han Solo in the Solo movie, where he likes droids too. But didn't get that. But yeah, I'm gonna the fight sequence though was so much longer. Like I was looking at my watch, I'm like, oh dude. Usually at this point, we got like 20, maybe. I'm like, there's a good probably 40, 45 in here. So that was great. Because again, you see, although they did regurgitate the shot where Paulie grabs his head and shakes him, the corner man's head.
Twice.
They do it twice. And I'm like, that's recycled. Somebody ran out of something. So they had to use that and filled it in there a little bit. Little forgot to pay attention there on the editing post for, this cut. But I loved it. The fight sequence is great. The speech at the end, and spoiler alert, instead of the Russian premiere clapping, he stands up and storms out instead. Mm-hmm. Instead of, so we realized we're now left with the unhopeful possible chance for reconciliation. Where in the original, he stands up and even claps for Rocky too, because it's just, we can all change. You can change. We can all change. Well, have any spare change? I don't know. That's Frank Stallone, I thought was dead last week, apparently. An idiot.
Yes, exactly. Frank Stallone is still alive, probably still making movie music for the next Sylvester Stallone film.
I know Frank Stallone Sr. died in 2012, though. Maybe I'm going to pretend like that was it.
But you know who else was missing from the movie? There were two very noticeable omissions, and I didn't realize it till I went back and thought about the original Rocky. And I know they're still alive. Cuff and Link, his turtles.
Oh, because they're turtles.
Yes. Yeah, they're still alive as of like 6 months ago, because I saw an interview with them where he took them both out and said, here's Cuff and Link that was with me in the original Rocky movie.
I was thinking about this too, just now that you brought it up. By the way, Seiko the Robot was played by Robert Dornick, so that would have been really, really progressive of them to have like a... But his son, Rocky Jr., this was not Sage Stallone that played Rocky Jr., I believe. I'm not 100, I want to be 100% sure on this. But obviously, if you were any Bandero, maybe? I don't know.
And there's one other thing I'll bring up about it. I noticed that in the director's cut, there were thoughts being communicated that I do not remember being in Rocky IV. Because remember, Apollo gives him the speech about you'll understand this when the time comes, and he's in the ring thinking that. I don't.
Yeah, there's a lot more inner monologue. Yeah, like get up.
Yes,
because he has that whole conversation about getting up off the mat too. He's like, get up. That and then
the flashback when he's in the ring to Apollo dropping.
I also thought I actually never noticed Apollo's wife in that death sequence is sitting with two children.
I never noticed that
Obviously
either.
not Adonis from
Yes.
the Creed movies, but
Well, wasn't the
I don't
story?
recall, did he meet siblings in the second one or in the first one? I can't remember in the Creed movies if he meets other siblings, because it's, what's her name from Cosby Show playing
Felicia Rashad?
Felicia Rashad. Felicia Rashad playing what's his name's wife. I mean, unless I'm going crazy here, but I feel like, there was 2 kids though. It kind of reminded me of Entourage. In like the first season, there's like 1 kid and then there's 2 kids or something like that. Or like there was 2 kids and then there's only 1 kid and they brought back, now all of a sudden there's 2 kids again.
Well,
Wait,
maybe they did a Married with Children where the kid went upstairs and never came back.
Or like what they've done with the new Roseanne, or the new the whatever, the Roseanne,
The Connors or whatever.
Connors. They like totally, the Roseanne doesn't even exist anymore. The other son doesn't exist at all. Like he's dream sequence. Marianne Creed. It's Apollo's widow. So she played Marianne Creed. But I don't see, like, does she have?
I thought the whole purpose with Creed was he introduced himself as, his other child, implying.
Yeah, Donnie's not Creed. Adonis is not her son. It's a
Right.
son. Biological. His mother's like, he's adopted when his biological mother dies.
Yeah. Yes.
Those are great films, by the way. That made me actually, when we left Rocky versus Drago, first thing I wanted to do when I got home was find Creed 2, because I wanted to watch like jump to now Rocky trading Creed's kid and Drago's kid and Drago trading, because that adds now a little bit more flavor to it. Because again, I felt like this made a more personal Drago.
A more human Drago, if as weird as that sounds, because he was very robotic in the original film, in the original cut of it.
Yep. Justin put,
I fight for me.
I hope it's successful so we get a director's cut of Rocky 5. I feel like Tommy Gunn has a redemption story and it has a story that, and Kevin Connolly. Yeah. I don't know if it's going to turn out well for Tommy Gunn.
Right.
Yo, Tommy! I didn't hear no bell. But yeah, I mean, I would love to get the full visions of a lot of these. I don't mind. See, this is me. I don't mind directors going back and tamping around with their work. It's their work. If they want to go, hey, man, I was asleep last night and I had some really good pizza, and then I went to bed and I had a heat dream or a fever dream, and I came up next morning going, I'm going to do a brand new cut of The Princess
Blade
Bride.
Runner.
Yeah,
Blade Runner, because there's like 6 of them, and I've seen every one.
Right, of course. And that's some of that's us being suckers too. But the one like the immaculate cut, or like I don't know if you saw Exorcist. Is it Exorcist? There's 2 Exorcist 4s, I guess you want to call them that. And same thing. Like there's one that's called Dominion that's actually really good, and then the other one, the original version, is like, what the hell's going on here? This little kid just got attacked by hyenas. What the hell? But all the same footage. It's just the director was fired, and they just had someone makeshift edit together. So I like when a director goes back and dabbles with their work. I don't like. I wasn't a huge fan of Spielberg going back and taking the shotguns out of the police's hands in E.T. At that end sequence where they like basically like made it like all walkie talkies. But you know what? That's not that big a deal. Like, okay, it's not good.
Well, he's done. Well, Spielberg's done what, 2 recuts of Close Encounters?
Yep. And the one version that he said he wanted to change too, and this is the thing he can't change, I guess, right? Is that he wishes he never would have let Richard Dreyfuss get on the ship at the end. What kind of a father leaves his family behind?
Yeah.
And that's what something that Spielberg later in life, he actually admitted, saying, that was a big boo-boo. I wish I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
But at that point, he hated his father because he thought his father cheated on his mom and left his mom. When really, in reality, he didn't find out 2 years later that mom was cheating on dad with dad's best friend that used to go on vacation with them. And that's why mom and dad's best friend got married not long after dad moved out. So all of a sudden you realize that his dad wore that blame for years, decades even. And his characters went from being like the isolated father that's like not around, the non-present father, to like, if you watch his father figure characters now, from like, you could tell like when he finally figured out that his dad was not actually that bad a guy, because the father figures in his films start changing and they start evolving into more present fathers, defending fathers that can stand between trouble and their child. And so I really love watching that kind of stuff when you're watching like a director's. But when they do the director's cut, you see a little bit more of like their growth over time. The Apocalypse Now recut, the redo. My God, seeing that in IMAX was one of the coolest things I've ever experienced on film. And it like the scene, the slow motion with the fire and the napalm, that kind of segues into Martin Sheen in the bed, cutting himself with the glass and just
to the music of the Doors, the end in the background.
This is the end, my fan. Is just incredible. But watching that whole film, watching the things that he added, that Coppola added, that he took out, and you get all these different types of cuts, and you see this, and it's so exciting to watch because again, you see what years of growing and fame or non-fame and failure has done to these individuals and their mindset and how they view their work today compared to 20 years ago. And when Coppola filmed Apocalypse Now, or when Spielberg filmed E.T., or in this case, when Stallone, produced Rocky IV, there are things that now, 20, 30 years later that these guys have gone through, and you're like, it's a different person. And now they change and alter characters. Maybe Drago can be a little bit more of a sympathetic human character, as opposed to, we know that Russians aren't robots, and that, we know that there are normal, good people. The wall came down, and, we've seen this. We don't have to live in that cult. We have a different one now, obviously, but it's different. But it was like he changed, you can see that Stallone has softened his stance on the evils of things, but you also see that he has hardened his stance on the idea of reconciliation with foreign nations too, by flipping it around. Instead of having the optimistic clap, the guy storms out, and and you see, what's his name, the guy that's been bragging and running his mouth about Drago, crying because he knows he's about to go to the gulag.
Yes, he knows he's screwed.
I don't remember that being as big of a focus. I remember Drago just pushing him off, and that was about it.
Yeah.
But you see, that Drago did that, and you see that he did that. All of a sudden, you're like, dude, those dudes are probably both going to work camps or something.
Yep. Well, and the funny thing about it is watching that movie, and this happens with a lot of movies, especially when you rewatch them. If you've seen them before, especially if you've seen them in the theater, you may go back to a certain point in time where you go, oh, wow, I remember I was doing this, or I remember I saw this on, in this theater at this time when I was a senior in high school, or whatever it may be. And there's some other movies where you remember watching them when they came out. Great example for me is The Breakfast Club.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, this really is talking to me. And I watch it 20 years later. I go, I don't know what the fuck it was saying to me.
It's funny that you say that too. I think I told you this a couple weeks ago, but I had a student suggest this. We have Ghostbusters Afterlife coming out on Friday. Mm-hmm. And one of my students kind of just threw it out there, and like, you know what? Yeah. But the idea, we decided, like, today, this week leading up to it, I stopped everything we were doing with all my classes top to bottom. We don't usually show this film in my classes. And we're doing a Ghostbusters unit. So we're watching the original Ghostbusters right now in class. And so today, before we started the film, I did a PowerPoint over like a little bit of a lecture on, this is Harold Ramis. I wanted to actually stress Harold Ramis more than anything else.
Yes.
And yes, a little bit of Ivan Reitman. And of course, Jason Reitman, who's also a fantastic filmmaker into his own right, actually more decorated a filmmaker than his father. Actually, he's been nominated multiple times for multiple films.
Up in the Air is one of them I could immediately think of with Jason.
Thank You for Smoking. I mean, you can go down the list. I mean, some of the films, like Juno. Oh my God. Yeah. So we went into that. And we started talking about that, and so it was really interesting because, again, to put this together, I started looking at and one of the trivia questions was, what movie came out the same weekend as?
I know this. Gremlins.
See, and that to me reminded me of when I saw Ghostbusters for the first time, which was at the drive-in, and it was Ghostbusters and Karate Kid. Wasn't Karate Kid came out, but
yeah,
that was my double feature. I'd seen Ghostbusters before, but I had not seen Karate Kid yet. And so my friends had been talking about Karate Kid, like trying to do. Everyone was doing karate at that. Everyone was doing karate. I was like, shit. Why don't I know karate? How's everyone doing karate? I don't know. Why are you tying that bandana around your forehead? What is? I had to see Karate Kid to learn that's how you wear your bandana when you're tough, when you're in martial arts. So anyway, but Ghostbusters, that, and then my experience with Ghostbusters 2, actually, we saw Ghostbusters 2, and then my aunt and my sister made me go sneak into Howard the Duck, and I thought we were going to get arrested because I'd never snuck into a movie before. But the original Ghostbusters, that's where I took me back. So I showed my class. I'm like, guys, this legitimately was like, I can tell you what it felt like with this film to see it for the first time in a movie theater. Like, for me, that's what, and so again, you get kids that are falling asleep or like Mr. Feathershot, just guys and Skittles. And then you have kids that are like really into it, and you see how pumped they are. And like last week when I went to go, we'll talk about in a second, my Friday night screening, which was yours, was Saturday night or Sunday night? The Disney.
Well,
Plus.
they had screenings all weekend,
right?
But it was Sunday night when I was supposed to go, and I know Justin went. Unfortunately, I had some stuff going on where I couldn't go, but I had heard rumors about what the Pixar and Star Wars movies were for the weekend, which I got to say something. A little bit of a poor job by Disney, because they basically repeated the same movie 3 days in a row.
Yeah, that was dumb. I think that was
Yes.
dumb. I would have loved to have been able to talk about what I saw, which you don't have to worry about it now. Spoiler, it was Rogue One. But that was it was not a bad movie. It's a great movie to see on the big screen.
Yes.
I have no problem with that. Again, it was part of my Stubbs list plan. It was, and they had $5 popcorn and pop deals. Like, that was great. It was a Friday night, 9:00. It was great. But you go in there and of course for me, I because I teach what I teach, I do have my goobers. Like, I have students that are legitimately my movie goobers, and we talk film all day. They do my summer film institute with me, like this past summer even. And I walk into the movie theater, and it must have all said, I am taking this shift tonight, because I went to Yard House beforehand, had a flight, and had that, before the movie or whatever. And then I came in, I'm like, oh, I'm so excited. I'm going to go down at McGuffin's because they have cocktails there.
Yes.
But as soon as I walk in, and you think I sneak through with a mask, and I noticed my first kid, Simon. I'm like, oh, shit. Mr. Fiddler! Ticket taker. I'm like, all right, one. Ding! Like, you could start like a running counter over my head, like a graphic. All right, well, I'm gonna go to the I'm gonna go get some popcorn real quick. My other student, Tyler, runs over, sees me. I'm like, God dang it. Knocks over, hits the top of the register top that has like the little, like the head. Knocks it off completely. I'm like, you just broke the register, dude. So then they're like, hey, we have some Star Wars posters in the back. I'm like, oh, because you're supposed to get a poster with the movie. I'm like, that's great. Yeah, I guess you can grab my poster now. I'm fine. They come back with 3 cardboard, like the nice ones.
Oh, nice.
Oh, so nice. And then I read them. And I look at my student, Tyler, who knows better. Guess which one they brought me? The Last Jedi. All right. But I'm like, dang it, Tyler. But I'm like, it's still a nice art. It's really good art. So anyway, so then that's ding 2. Go into the restroom, start walking down. Apparently one told the other. And then I hear, Mr. Fiddler. And I turn around. I'm like, oh, hey, look, it's Brian now. Hey, Brian. Oh. And I'm like, God. So by the time I leave on my way out, my buddies showed up too. And they brought little secret. If you go to AMC and you bring a hydro flask, a water flask, right? They don't care. They let you bring it in.
Yes.
So if you take that flask, throw 3 big pieces of ice, and then you fill that son of a bitch up to the top with a nice little whiskey, even better.
Here's another hint for you. Wear a hoodie. Because you could walk in with a couple of bottles of Coke in your pocket of the hoodie. They don't care.
The whiskey part's great, though.
Or
I always get mad because McGuffin's is closed in the afternoon, so we usually do this in the afternoon. But me, him, and our buddy Brian, we polished it off, and walking out, I'm like, ooh, I might need to go eat some food. I'll be right back. But then the last student catches me on the way out, and I'm like, hey, like, bye. I did the whole run, and they were like, you didn't even stop to say hi. I'm like, yeah, no, I didn't.
Well, I was thinking about, after I heard what the movie was, I was thinking about this, and unfortunately, I really don't think it's obvious Disney is going to do this every year going forward. I would bet money the movie next year is Solo, and I will explain why. Because the original trilogy and the second trilogy were not Disney movies. Disney bought the rights to them. So technically, they are not Disney movies. So why would they be showing them and giving money to another studio, 20th Century Fox, as well?
Oh, they own 20th Century Fox, though. Disney owns 20th Century Fox.
That is true, but it's not technically, it was not made under the Disney umbrella, if you will.
Didn't Disney buy? That means Phantom Menace. That means that both
Disney
the
bought,
first trilogies. You're right. Yeah.
yeah.
Because
Disney
Rogue One
bought
is
them.
Disney.
The latest trilogy, Solo and Rogue One, are Disney. Everything else was made before Disney purchased it.
Yeah, the short actually I thought was clever too. Yeah, that was pretty funny. I thought it was going to be the Star Wars daycare one, which was really funny when they showed on Disney Plus a while back. But that was fun to watch. My buddies, again, because we were having a little bit of Grandpa's old cough medicine while we were watching it. It turned into, and again, everybody in that theater seen the movie. Hello, if it's the first time seeing Rogue One, you're probably not showing up to that theater at 9:00 on a Friday night to go, hey, I'm going to go see this movie for the first time. I hope it's really good. I don't know what it is. Let's watch it. And so these people are all people that expected it. So we could talk a little bit, and we had, again, it was in the bigger theater. And so the three of us, it was like an episode of Mystery Science Theater. The whole time, shenanigan comments, and like, God, Mads Mikkelsen is on there, and all you can think of is the scene in James Bond. And I'm like, hey, look, does he have poop on his shoulder? Because there's a scene where he puts that rope over James Bond's shoulder. And it looks like he's got literally like poop on his shoulder in that torture sequence. But you've got like when he takes out of the chair bottom or whatever. And so I'm like,
you mean where he still has an itch?
Yeah.
When he's being tortured? I think you missed the spot.
Oh man! And so it was comedy. It was straight comedy, and it was like top this kind of comedy. So that was kind of fun. It made me think like how fun it would be to like, do like a live cast where you're not with a crowd or an audience, where you can actually make stupid jokes with your friends because you're watching the movie, and it is like that Mystery Science. Because again, sometimes I'm the worst, especially watching movies with friends on a couch. I'm sometimes pop on my phone. Again, I have ADHD, terrible discipline with that. But I also have a terrible habit of like, when something really cool happens, like, oh, I want to talk about it right now. Like, I can't wait till it's over. So it's always like, pause. Okay, Kevin, what was that again? Are you done? Okay. Unpause. Movie keeps going. So I would love to be in like a chat where it's like a live chat of a film like that, where you're supposed to talk over it.
Well, I could tell you one example where a friend of mine absolutely brought down the house with commentary. And it was only one comment. We went and saw Saving Private Ryan. And you know how before you see it, they always talked about the first 20 minutes are so intense, right? And before the intensity starts, well, if it's 25 years old, if you haven't seen it yet, I'm sorry, spoiler alerts. But when they're walking through the cemetery, he goes, this doesn't seem too intense. What am I missing? I'm like, nothing. But then when they're on the Higgins boat, storming towards the beach, and then they get off and all hell breaks loose, he proceeds to announce to the theater, if John Wayne was there, this would be over already. And you're watching this incredibly intense scene, and you just start laughing your ass off at this stupid comment that is made.
And then it catches, and then the harder it is to stop laughing, the more you try to stop, it just spreads. That is the time that I went to the Exorcism of Emily Rose. It was a screening back when I was actually working as a film critic, and the advanced screening, I brought my buddy Josh with me. Again, actually the guy that I went to see Rogue One with. Been friends for almost 20 years now at this point. And we go, and again, if you've seen the Exorcism of Emily Rose, there's a whole sequence that's in a courtroom, and it's obviously it's the total courtroom trope where it's like a good speech at the end, right? And that secures their client's freedom or whatever, blah blah blah. And so this is the scene in the scene. So if you've seen the Exorcism of Emily Rose, you know that the scene they stop all the music, and it's just the lawyer, and she's talking and she's speaking, and the courtroom is so bright, right? So you could see the whole theater, right? It's bright. Mm-hmm. And this guy is walking up the lower section to go to the bathroom during the scene, and he's got both hands in his pockets as he's going up the steps like Johnny Cool. At some point, he misses with his toe on one step and loses his balance, and because his hands are in his pocket, he has nothing to break his fall but his face. And so as the scene is quiet, the only sound you hear is the lawyer on the screen, but then you hear this boom. Dude's on his face, and it's so bright you can see it clearly as day. He gets up, he's like, and then he falls again, eats shit again. I've never seen someone eat shit like this in my entire life. And then he leaves the theater. Forget about it. I don't know what happened in the rest of Emily Rose, because the rest of the time was in all the serious dramatic scenes. And then it just to the next person. And my buddy Josh is the worst because he's got the most like obscenely loud laugh. So like when he gets going, his is like a like, and oh my God, like, and I'm just like, oh, now I'm embarrassed. But then like it gets quiet and we get resettled, and then you hear and then it just picks right back up again, and it just and the whole movie. So like that's what that reminded me of, because that's the hardest I've ever laughed in a movie theater, besides, of course, Weensy throwing the cinder block into the giant manhole cover, and then, of course, getting pulled down. So those are the two most I've laughed in a movie theater. Third being, of course, same movie when Will Ferrell shoots himself with a dart in the neck and then pushes the kids out of the way.
So the scene I laughed at the most was the waxing scene in 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Oh, yeah.
And it wasn't so much because of the waxing, but it was just watching Paul Rudd and what's his name, the stoner.
Oh, Seth Rogen.
I almost said Joe Rogan, but watching Paul Rudd,
noted Dr. Joe Rogan.
That's right. Watching those two react while it was going on was the best part, especially when Paul Rudd runs off screen and he goes, "I'm gonna go throw up, man."
So good. Paul Rudd, back when he was 74 years old. Now he's 106.
But he is the sexiest man alive.
Yes, he is. His actual interview, by the way, if you've read, there's an interview that he does. I can't remember what magazine, maybe it was Rolling Stone. Him talking about how, like, he's like, yeah, everyone's gonna hate this, right? Like, yeah, like I'm prepared for it. Like, it's him talking about how he knows everyone's gonna hate it. And so it's just funny how he prepares himself, because again, he's just so self-deprecating. Mm-hmm. Still nothing better than when he's on Conan O'Brien. For any movie, and he shows the clip from Mac and Me instead of the actual scene from the movie every single time. There's a montage, like a 15-20 minute montage of it, and I show it every year to my class because it's just hysterical. And he even did it when Conan did his last show. He got him again one more time. But
yeah,
Paul Rudd, national treasure, really.
Yes,
him and Betty White. But other than that, man, I know that we got Ghostbusters. We talked a little bit. Ghostbusters coming out this weekend. I actually, my girlfriend's going to Miami tomorrow for a work trip, so I may have to wait until she gets back to go see it. So that's going to really be tough. But
so that means everybody, spoiler alerts nonstop starting Thursday night.
Please tell me how it happens. How does it end? But other than that, though, I mean, it's Golden Knights are losing. Golden Knights tickets were dropping for $25 right at puck drop, by the way, out in front of the stadium.
Really?
Ooh, that'd be nice. But other than that, we got the Bears coming up this weekend. We don't have to talk too much about that. The Bears are coming. I don't even want to talk about the bad calls anymore. I think it's a good time to just maybe put that one to bed forever. But
yes,
we'll have some good stuff to talk about after this next weekend, heading into the Thanksgiving week next week, which we'll be back to. I think we'll be fine on Monday, barring any kind of crazy things happening. But thanks for my end, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate, especially Justin and Yumper and the rest of you guys in the chat. I know Beef was in there for a little bit, and obviously this gentleman by the name of Jacob. And so yes. I appreciate you guys again. So have for my side.
And my buddy Doug was in there for a little bit too, aka DeMayer.
Oh, DeMayer, that was Doug. Okay.
Yes. So, a guy I've known, a guy I started working with at my first real IT job in 1989.
Oh, so that kind of friend. All right. Very nice.
Yes.
Very, well, from my end, guys, I hope you guys have an absolutely fantastic weekend. Stay safe. Be nice to everybody. Treat everybody with respect. Unless they're a Packer fan, then you can feel free to kick them in the nards.
Yes. and for Packer fans
got nards.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go out there and get those shares of nothing.
Yes.
$300 for a piece of paper. Go get it.
But that's all I got. So have Pete give us your final thoughts and then take us on out, bud. Always a pleasure.
Everybody, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Feel free to drop some comments. Tell us we're great. Tell us we suck. We'll probably believe that we suck comments more than we're great comments, to be honest with you. But just go out there. Be respectful to others. I know there's a lot of toxicity going on right now. Just be respectful. Accept the fact that other people may have an opinion that's different than yours. That doesn't make you right and them wrong, or them right and you wrong. Opinions are partially formed by life experiences. So just remember and be respectful of others, please, especially with the holiday season coming up. And with that, I am out of here. Aloha.